Shalom, shalom, my mishpaka, my family, to the whole house of Yasharal, to all 12 tribes, all 12 tribes. Although we are scattered, although we are dispersed to the four corners of the earth, I salute all 12 tribes, to the whole house of Yasharal, to all the sons of YAHUAH'S. I salute you this morning. I salute, esteem the older brother, Yahudah. I salute and esteem the younger brother, Ephraim or Ephraim. I salute and esteem indeed also the stranger who is family, who is a part of the house of Yasharal, who being a former Gentile, a former nation, a former heathen, a former swine or pig, who has come out from amongst the nations and who has engrafted into the house of Yasharal, who the covenants and promise and inheritance were given to alone. Now that you are engrafted into the natural olive tree, you too are privy to the same covenants and promise and inheritance that was given to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone. Shalom, shalom to my family worldwide on this Yom. Shalom, shalom, mishpaka, wherever your feet touch the soil. Wherever your feet touch the soil. My family, I have a question. Somewhat of a burden for me, as it has been for quite some time. Somewhat of a burden for me, not so much directed at you, Mishpaka. If you are indeed listening to this video and you are Mishpaka, you may in fact already know this truth. You may in fact already know this truth. But my Mishpaka, there are still family members of ours that are still lost within Mitzrayim, who are still held captive in Mitzrayim, who are still bowing down to Babylonian deities or Babylonian mighty ones, who are still succumbing to the lies that our fathers inherited and then passed down to us, who have yet to awaken to the true light, who are still indeed living and walking in darkness, having no clue that they are indeed in darkness. So this video is primarily addressed to them, Mishpaka. And if you know any of them, I pray that you would share it with them, that you would share this video with them, and indeed, maybe you will hear something that you didn't know, but primarily it is for our lost family, our lost brothers and sisters who have yet to awaken to the truth, And there's only one truth. There's only one truth. So indeed, this video is directed primarily at them, to prayerfully rip their proverbial eyes open, unstop their proverbial ears, loosen the proverbial stiffness out of their necks, and to loosen and till the proverbial soil of their heart. So I pray in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, that not only does he give his servant boldness to speak as he ought, in clarity of thought and clarity of tongue and boldness of heart to speak as he ought, but that the very Ruach of the Most High goes before me into the very living rooms, cars, or office buildings, or wherever our mispaka may be on this yam that are yet still living in darkness, that the very Ruach of the Most High will go before me and convict them of this truth and rip open their proverbial eyes and loosen their proverbial necks and take the proverbial shackles off of their minds and till the proverbial soil of their hearts, So the question remained that's prevalent on my mind, and it's a rhetorical question. Obviously, I know the answer, and many of you know as well. But again, this is intended for our lost brothers and sisters who do not know this truth and who are yet being held captive in the proverbial matrix. The question is, what is the good news? What is the good news which is falsely called the gospel, Godspell? What is the good news, the basora, which is falsely called the gospel, or Gutspell, or Godspell? Now, I purposely said gospel, or Godspell, or Gutspell. I purposely pointed that out because that is a very deceptive word. Very deceptive that is loosely thrown around. You see, it's pagan. It's pagan. It's a Teutonic word. Teutonic meaning pagan, a pagan Germanic word. Germanic. It is a Teutonic Germanic word. Germanic word that is named after a Germanic deity, a Germanic mighty one. And it is the mighty one called Wudan, or God, This is what this word is derived from. This is who this word is derived from. You see, many of you already know that through syncretism, which means the merging of diverse beliefs, through syncretism, Constantine the First merged all the pagan religions under his empire into the state-sanctioned religion of Christianity. I see Christianity is not something new. Christianity began thousands of years ago in the land of Mitzrayim, where worshippers of Christos Serapis and Christos Helios and Christos Osiris were all called Christians. They were all called Christians, and they were all sun worshippers, no different than Constantine the First, who himself worshipped Christos Mithras, the unconquered sun, Sol Invictus. He was a sun worshiper. And so he adopted Christianity, a pagan religion that dated back thousands of years, as the state religion of Rome, and he used this state religion to merge all of the pagan religions under his empire under one state-sanctioned religion. And the Germanic tribes that were merged into Christianity, obviously they worshipped Gudan and Wudan, or God. Now you can research this stuff on your own if you're not Zion, if you're not of the house of Jacob. You can research this stuff on your own and be a Berean and research this stuff and prove me wrong. And so I want to bring your attention to this false word gospel. spell, a gut spell, a got spell, because it was introduced into the scriptures as a result of the Germanic tribes being merged into this false religion of Christianity. This false religion of Christianity. So indeed, this word is neither Hebrew nor Greek. It is Germanic. It is Germanic. The Hebrew word is besora. The Greek word is uigilon, both meaning good news. Both meaning good news, and not got spell, a gut spell, a got spell, which means, the spell of the god Wudan, the spell of Wudan, a Gudan, a god. God is also the name of the Babylonian deity of fortune. His name is also God. He is the Babylonian deity of fortune. So first off, this word is false. It is false, and it was introduced as a means. It was introduced by pagans, and it was introduced to deceive the masses. It was indeed introduced to deceive the masses. So then, what is the good news? What is the Basora, which is falsely called the gospel or Godspell or gut spell? Well, let me preface that with a few words from Rabbi Shaul when he is addressing the Galatians. Let me address that. Let me preface that with a few words that he wrote to them. And I'm going to read from Galatians, the first chapter. I'm going to read verse 1 through 9. And it reads, beginning at verse 1, Shaul, a ambassador, not from men, nor by a man. Excuse me, let me clean my glasses, my readers. Beginning at verse 1 again. Shaul, an emissary, not from men, nor by a man, but by Yahushua Mashiach and Alua, the Father who raised him from the dead. And all the brothers who are with me to the assemblies of Galatia. Not the church, not the church. Church is another false term. Church, within the etymology of the word church, is the word Circe and the word circle. Who is Circe? Circe is the Greek goddess of sorcery and wine, who is mentioned in Hazum as the great whore who has the whole world drunk with her sorcery and her wine. So it's not church. This is a false word that was, again, purposely introduced by pagan translators. The Hebrew word is chahal, which means assembly, and the Greek word is ecclesia, which also means assembly, and not church. Not church. Again, this is another false word intended to divide, to cause us to think that there is more than one assembly, when indeed there is only one assembly. There's always been one assembly. And so the false term church was introduced to make us think that there is more than one assembly. Even William Tinsdale understood this. William Tinsdale was the first to translate the Brit Chadashah from the Greek and Hebrew text into the English language. Prior to that, you had the Latin Vulgate translated by Jerome, and you had the German text translated by Martin Luther, who translated from the Latin Vulgate. And so in these texts, the word church was used. The word church was used, which indeed is a pagan temple. It's always been a pagan temple. Again, within this word church is the word circle, indicative of a pagan temple, indicative of naked whores, naked prostitutes, harlots, laying in a circle in this pagan temple of sun worship and sex magic and waiting for men indeed to come in and service them. Yes, indeed, they are daughters of the harlot. They are daughters of sorcery, the Greek goddess of sorcery and wine. So indeed, William Tinsdale, when he translated the Bref Kadashah directly into English directly from the Greek and the Hebrew text, he correctly translated the Hebrew word kahal and the Greek word ecclesia into assembly, And for his efforts, the Catholic Circe, the Catholic Church, the great whore of the Greek goddess of sorcery and wine, who has the whole world drunk with her sorcery and her wine, they considered him a heretic. And they proceeded to strangle him and then burn him at the stake because he correctly translated the word ecclesia and the word kahal into assembly, thus removing the false power of the church, which places a distinction between the clergy and the laity. He took away the power of the institution of the false church, and they killed him. Because these are seed of the wicked one. They are seed of the wicked one, and they are planted here to deceive the masses into thinking that there are two assemblies, Hence, the false church thinks that there is a gospel. Hence, the false church think that they are somehow going to be raptured up out of the earth, that they're going to be mysteriously raptured up out of the earth. And Israel, what they call Israel, or Yasharal, and unbelievers are going to be left here to deal with the tribulation period. Oh, they got a big surprise coming. You see, it's never been about a church. It's always about the assembly, the one assembly of Yahuwah, Yasha'al. Nevertheless, reading here, Shaul, an emissary, not from men, nor by a man, but by Yahushua Mashiach and Alua, the Father, who raised him from the dead, and all the brothers who are with me, to the assemblies of Galatia. And I explained to you what assembly is. This is the one assembly of Yahuwah, and we're going to get more into this. Favor to you and shalom from Alua the Father and our Master Yahushua Mashiach, who gave himself for our sins to deliver us out of this present wicked age, according to the desire of Alua and Father, to whom be the praise and forever. To whom be the praise forever and ever. I mean, he goes on to say, I marvel that you are so readily turning away from him who called you in the favor of Mashiach to a, different good news. Different good news. Have you received a different good news? Have you accepted a different good news into your nafash and into your labah? Now, to add context to this text, the different good news he is talking about here is that there was some Yahudim from Yerushalayim that had gone to this assembly and were teaching them a different good news. Now, the good news that they were trying to tell them is that they had to receive the circumcision of the flesh in order to be delivered. Deliverance is only to Yasharal. The covenants, the inheritance, and the promise was only given to Yasharal. It is written in the Torah that if one does not have the circumcision of the flesh, then he cannot come within the assembly of Yasharal. He cannot come within our camp. He cannot come within our midst. Thus, he cannot receive deliverance, because deliverance is to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone. And so they were teaching that unless they receive the cut, the split of the flesh, then they could not receive deliverance. But this was not the good news that Shaul was bringing. The good news that Shaul was bringing is that through the Hamashiach, that there is a brith, a cut, a split that is given, that is not made by the hands of men, but by the hands of Alua, by the Ruach HaKodesh made upon the heart. A split, a brit, a cut, a circumcision of the heart is made by the Ruach, who writes the Torah on our hearts, whereby giving us a love for Torah and a willingness to obey it. But there is still a brit, there is still a cut, there is still a circumcision, but it's not made by hands. This is the good news that Shaul brought, but the Yahudim were bringing a different good news with respect to still adhering to the circumcision of the flesh, which was rendered weak because it was given in the flesh, and the flesh cannot guard the righteous Torah of Yahuwah because Torah is spiritual, it is righteous, and the flesh cannot keep it. It must be kept via the Ruach, via the circumcision of the heart. If we do not have the Ruach, we cannot righteously keep Torah, which is righteous, which is spiritual. Nevertheless, they brought a different good news. But the question is, have you received a different good news? Have you received a different good news? The good news has many different levels. And we are going to discover if whether or not you indeed have received a different good news. It goes on to say, I marvel that you are so readily turning away from him who called you to the favor of Mashiach to a different good news, which is not another, only there are some who are troubling you and wishing you to pervert the good news of Mashiach. However, even if we or a messenger out of Shamayim bring a good news to you beside what we announce to you, hear me, let him be accursed. So if any of you are listening to this video and you are a so-called preacher, proclaimer, Nabi, or what is falsely called prophet, or evangelist, or whatever, or teacher, or whatever capacity that you proclaim to be in, if you are bringing a different good news than the one that is going to be proclaimed to you on this Yom, then this letter, written by the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, that through this letter I proclaim to you, then let you be accursed. Let you be accursed. As we have said before, and now I say again, if anyone brings a good news to you besides what you have received, let him be accursed. Take heed. If you are bringing a different good news than the one that is going to be presented on this Yom and the one that Shaul presented to the Galatians, let him be accursed. Not my words, but the word of Yah spoken under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh through the lips of Shaul, his righteous servant, his righteous vessel. Let him be accursed. Let him be accursed. Previously, I mentioned that the proper word used here is assembly. It's chahal and ecclesia, and not the false word church, not this witch, not Circe, the daughter of Helios, the sun god Helios. Oh yes, it's all about sun worship. The sun god Helios, who in Greek mythology is known for getting men drunk and turning them into pigs, turning them into swine, turning them into unclean things, turning them into abominable things. Hence, those who operate outside of Torah Those who make the false declaration that the Torah, that we are no longer under Torah, are drunk and are abominable things, unclean things. Why? Because it is the Torah that teaches us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. It is the Torah that teaches us how to live set apart. It is the Torah that teaches us the very nature and character of the Most High Yah, and through obedience to it, teaches us to assume the very nature and character of the Most High Yah, and it teaches us to be set apart as He is set apart, not holy, not holy, not the Greek, not the goddess Holly, not the goddess Holly. Holly denotes sun worship. It is a derivative of halo, meaning a glow, an aura, indicative of the glow of the sun. All of these are pagan words. All of these are pagan words. So not holy. We're not holy as He is holy. We are set apart. The Hebrew word is chodesh. Chodesh, which means set apart. Which means set apart. It does not mean holy. This is another pagan word that was introduced to deceive you. Many are one running around talking about they have the spirit of Holly, and declaring out of their mouths that they have a Kundalini spirit, that they have the spirit of Holly indwelling in them. Indwelling in them. Having a picture of the Hamashiach with a halo, with the sun behind his head, indicative of sun worship. Awaken on this day. Come out of your filth. Come out of your paganism. Come out from amongst the pigs and swine, because if you are wallowing with pigs, you are indeed a pig with them. Because as the Torah declares, that if you eat and touch anything abominable, then you yourself are abominable. So if you are touching an unclean pig, if you are dwelling amongst the pig and the swine, then you yourself are no different than the pig and the swine. You yourself are a swine. You yourself are unclean, because you refuse to adhere to the righteous Torah, which teaches you the difference, to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. And you are just as unclean as the unclean swine who you are wallowing with. Nevertheless, I mentioned earlier that the word is ecclesia, and the word is kahal, which means assembly. Did you know that Galatians, that the Hebrew term for word translation for Galatians is galut yah? Galut yah. The root of galut yah is galut, which means exiles or diaspora. Galut yah, meaning exiles of Yahuwah. These weren't just Gentiles in your limited, feeble understanding of your feeble mind and your unlearned mind. These weren't just Gentiles. He weren't sent to just Gentiles. He was sent to the diaspora who were living amongst the Gentiles, to the Galuts, to the Galut Yah, the exiles of Yahuwah. He was sent to Ephraim, to Ephraim. He was sent to the diaspora. He was sent to the diaspora. And that is a segue into what is the good news. What is the good news? When my ancestors came out of Egypt, came out of Mitzrayim, there were 12 tribes. There were 12 whole tribes. And the strangers that attached themselves to us, who underwent the circumcision and who made the declaration that they were going to guard the commands, the same Torah, because there's one Torah for both the native born and the stranger. One Torah, one assembly, one Torah. The strangers came out with us. Those who were circumcised could guard our feasts. They guarded our Torah, and they were no different than the native born. In fact, in the Wikra, it declares that we are to love them as we love ourselves. We have always welcomed the stranger, no different than now. But if you're a stranger listening, the only circumcision required for you is the circumcision of the heart. It's the circumcision of the heart. This is what brings you into fellowship with the house of Yaakov. Through the shed blood of Hamashiach, through belief in the offering of the body of the Hamashiach. Nevertheless, there were 12 tribes that came out of bondage, the house of bondage, the house of sin, out of Mizraim. When we entered our land, there were 12 whole tribes, inclusive of the stranger, inclusive of the stranger. And we were whole. We were one house. We were one nation. Up through the time of Shalumah, commonly called Solomon, we were whole. We were one house. But because of the idolatry and the wickedness and the witchcraft of Shalumah, Yahuwah declared that he was going to rip the kingdom, to rip the reign from underneath his feet. But he said, because of his promise to his servant Dawood, that he wasn't going to do it until he died, until Shlomo died. And also because of his promise to his servant Dawood, that and that he would always have a man to sit on the throne in the reign in Yehudah, that he was going to leave 2 tribes in Yehudah, but then he was going to rip the kingdom apart, the reign apart, and he was going to place 2 tribes in Yehudah, and the remaining 10 tribes were going to be placed in the northern reign called Israel, a Yasharal, and sometimes called Ephraim, Ephraim, sometimes called Ephraim and Ephraim. Why was it sometimes called Ephraim and Ephraim? I don't want to make this video too long, but I need you to understand the good news. What I need you to understand is that through tradition and through the law of inheritance, that the inheritance always goes to the firstborn son. It is always passed to the firstborn son. The inheritance is always given to him. What is the inheritance? The inheritance is the land, and by extension, the inheritance is the Eretz. The inheritance is the earth that was given to Adam, and passed down from firstborn to firstborn to firstborn to firstborn, till we arrive at Nuach, and then it was passed to Shem, and then from Shem to Eber. You know, I'm missing some names, but Eber is a very significant name because this is where the term Abri, Hebrew, Aber, Abba, Abri, commonly called Eber, but in the Paleo, Abad, and from this we get Abri, or Hebrew. Then down to Abraham. Abraham, as a firstborn. He wasn't the actual firstborn of his father. He had older brothers, but he was chosen as firstborn, as we see with Yaakov, who was also chosen as firstborn, as we are going to find out with Ephraim, who was also chosen as a firstborn, but was not a firstborn, and as we see with his father, Yahusuf, who was also not a firstborn, but was chosen as a firstborn. Nevertheless, Abraham was chosen as firstborn, and as firstborn, he was given the inheritance of his father. What father? Yahuwah. He's given the inheritance of Yahuwah, his father. Adam was given the inheritance of his father, Yahuwah. And so Yahuwah gave Abraham an inheritance. What inheritance? The land. He gave him the land. The land is the inheritance. The land of Yasharal is the inheritance that was given to Abraham, and it was passed down. That inheritance was passed down to Yishak. From Yishak, it was passed down, to Yaakov, and from Yaakov, it was passed down not to Ra'uban because Ra'uban slept with his father's wife, with Bilhah. He slept with his father's wife. Thus, the firstborn inheritance of firstborn Barakah then passed from Ra'uban to Yahusaf, the 11th born son of Yaakov. And from Yahusaf, who was given a double portion, it was passed down to Ephraim. Actually, he was given a double portion of both his sons with Ephraim and Manasseh, who were and are considered tribes, half tribes. They are considered tribes. They sit in the place of Yahusaf and Levi, who has no portion, So thus, Ephraim and Manasseh sit in their place. So the Barakah then passed from Yahusaf to his youngest son, to Ephraim. In the Barakah, the firstborn Barakah that Yaakov, when he was Barakah, and I say Barakah because if you've listened to the Yah's videos through me at any length, then you know the word blessed, blessing, and blessed is pagan. It alludes to a pagan blood ritual. So Barakah is used in place of blessing, and Baruch is used in place of blessed, and Barak is used in place of bless, So in the 48th chapter of Bereshith, or Genesis, when Yaakov is Barakah, the sons of Yaakov, and he's placing the firstborn Barakah on the head of Ephraim, because he places his right hand on his head and his left hand on the head of Manasseh. And I encourage you to go back to read Bereshith 48 in its entirety, but for the sake of this video, I don't want to make this video too long. I'm going to try and condense it. But when he did this, when he placed his right hand on the head of Ephraim and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, this is indicative that he was bestowing the firstborn Barakah that was passed down to him on the head of Ephraim. Thus, he declares to Yahusaf that these lads were his. They were his just as Reuben and Shemun are his. These two lads are his. Now, if he had any more offspring after them or produced any more offspring after them, then they were his. But these two are his. Indeed, in fact, he then passed his name on to Ephraim. He put his name on him, Yasharal. Thus, the northern kingdom is sometimes called Ephraim, and it is sometimes called Yasharal, because Yasharal rests upon Ephraim. His name is on him. So the kingdom was split in two between the northern reign, called Ephraim, sometimes called Yasharal, and the southern kingdom, sometimes called, or all the time called, Yehudah, or commonly called Judah. Well, from the very beginning through the sovereign Rehoboam, or was it through the servant, through the first sovereign of Yasharal, he led them directly into idolatry from the very beginning. From the very beginning, he led them into idolatry. I'm going to, because I don't want to give you false information. I am speaking by inspiration of the Ruach. This is not something that I have in front of me or notes that I have in front of me. Um, but I want to give you the correct names, such as to give you correct context, so as to give you correct context um, of this teaching through Yah's servant. I want to give you correct context. So that you have correct context. Correct context. Nevertheless, Yaroboam, if you're familiar with the story, was the son of Shaluma. Was the son of Shaluma, and he was given two tribes. He was given after the split. He was given the southern reign. The southern reign. The northern reign was given to Raoboam. And immediately, he led the reign into idolatry, the northern kingdom into idolatry, because he was afraid that the people were going to leave the northern reign and go to Jerusalem, where the Hekel still resided, and that by doing so, that they were going to leave his reign. Rather than trust Yahuwah, he trusted in himself, that they were going to leave his reign and go over to the southern reign by going to the Hekel at Jerusalem. And so he erected two golden calves. Many of you already know this story. Many of you already know it. He erected two golden calves. And interestingly, our ancestors erected a golden calf in the wilderness. And similar words were uttered when Aharaun, commonly called Aaron, declared that here is your mighty one who delivered you from Mitzrayim. Who delivered you from Mitzrayim, totally smashing and demolishing the first command, the first commandment. Rehoboam did one better. He erected two golden calves, and he uttered the very same words. Here, O Yasharal, are your mighty ones, who delivered you from bondage, who delivered you from Mitzrayim. And so from the very start, he led the northern reign into idolatry. When Yahuwah had given Rehoboam a promise and declared, if you will only serve me, then I will establish your reign forever. I will establish your reign forever. But right from the start, he led the northern reign. He led Ephraim into idolatry. And so this continued. The northern reign had not one good sovereign. All of them were wicked. Every single one of them were wicked. Every single sovereign of the northern reign was wicked. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. And so finally, Yahuwah grew weary. He grew weary of their wickedness. He grew weary of their wickedness after sending Nabi, what is falsely called prophets, to warn them. Amos and Husha, and even Yaram Yahu, commonly called Jeremiah. He sent Nabi to warn them and to shake them out of idolatry. He sent Eliyahu himself to shake them, to warn them out of their idolatry, yet they would not listen. Until finally, Yahuwah gave them a certificate of divorce and put them away. He divorced them. he divorced them and put them away. And so in the year 722 BCE, he allowed the Assyrians to come into the land and take Ephraim, to take Ephraim, to take Yasharal into captivity, and dispersed him to the four corners of the Eretz, to disperse them to the four corners of the Eretz. He divorced them. He divorced them. He washed his hands of them, and he divorced them. And as it is written in the Torah, in the 24th chapter of Dabarim, commonly called Deuteronomy, if a man takes an Asha and marries her, and if he finds some uncleanness in her, and then he gives her a certificate of divorce and sends her away and puts her away, and then she leaves and she joins herself to another husband. If she joins herself to another husband, if then that husband finds some uncleanness in her, then she cannot return to her first husband, because that would bring an abomination upon the land, because that would be an unclean thing. That would be an unclean thing. And as written in Yahu or Jeremiah, the 3rd chapter, this is what Ephraim did. This is what Ephraim did. He was divorced and put away, and then he went and joined himself to, as the word declares, many husbands, many false mighty ones, many false deities, joined themselves to many husbands, and thus Ephraim could never return back to the first husband, could never return back to the first husband, because this would bring abomination and uncleanness upon the land. So Ephraim could never return back to the first husband. Never. Never, never, never. Could never return back to the first husband, because Yahuwah cannot go back on what he has spoken. His word is eternal. He can never go back on what he has spoken. So then, what is the solution? What does he do? What does he do? Well, the husband then, he created a body for himself in which to dwell. The husband did, to create a body in which for him to dwell. And the first husband then came and he died for his lost son, for his prodigal son, for the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. He then died, he was buried, and then he was resurrected into a renewed being, a renewed man, a new man. Thus, hear me, the good news now, the Basora now, not the false Godspell, Godspell. The true good news, the true Basora, is that now hear me, Ephraim. Hear me, Ephraim. The first husband has died, and a new one has arisen. And so now you can be rejoined in a renewed covenant, Ephraim, in a renewed marriage covenant, Ephraim, in a brif kadashah, Ephraim, whereby being rejoined to your father, to your husband, whereby being rejoined to the house of Yasharal, whereby now deliverance is now once again yours, because deliverance is only to Yasharal, as the covenants, the inheritance, and the promise is only to the house of Jacob. And so now, Ephraim, this is the good news. You can be rejoined to your husband in a renewed covenant, in a brif kadashah. This is also good news to you, stranger, who are living as heathen and living amongst the swine and as swine, indeed, that through the Hamashiach, through his shed blood, that you can be enjoined, that you can be married to this same husband, and whereby now you too can become Yasharal. You can become a branch, a netzar, because you are joined. Actually, you can become netzarim, branches, because you are joined to the netzar, ha-netzar, the branch, in accordance with Zechariah 3, the root of a Yashai, the root that has been planted in righteousness, that has grown into a tree, that has grown into a branch. And if you are joined to him, if you are joined to Ha-Netzar, you are indeed Netzarim. You are branches. You are engrafted and joined to the house of Yasha'al. You are joined to Ha-Netzar, to Yasharal. You are joined to the one husband, to the one assembly. This is the true Besora. This is the true good news. This is not some replacement theology, fake gospel, good spell, or gospel. You are not joined to Gudon, or Gadon, or the Babylonian deity God. You are joined to Yahuwah, the one Alua of Shamayim and Aretz. When you engraft into the house of Yasharal through Ha-Netzar, through the Hamashiach, thus becoming Netzarim. This is the true good news, Ephraim. This is the true good news, Ephraim. You are not a Christian. You are not a Buddhist. You are not a Muslim. You are not a Hindu. You are not Gnostic. You are not agnostic. You are not a Satanist. You are not a witch. You are not a warlock. You do not practice rabbinical Judaism. You are not Sarim. You are Netzarim. Come out of her, my people, on this day, and hear the true Besora. And hear the true Besora on this Yom. And become Netzarim, Natzarim. Be branches, be watchmen, be joined to Ha-Netzar, and become Netzarim. This is who Shaul was addressing. Galut, Yah, exiles of Yahuwah. This is who Shaul was addressing. This is who he was addressing. He was addressing Ephraim. He was addressing Ephraim. In Hamashiach, there is no difference between Yahudah, Jew, because Yahudah was never divorced. He was never giving a certificate of divorce and sent away. In Yahusha, in the Hamashiach, there is no difference between Yahudah and Ephraim, whom is falsely called Gentile. There is no difference between Yahudah and Ephraim. In Yahusha, two sticks become one. Yahudah and Ephraim become one. There is neither slave nor free, nor male nor female. We are one Yasharal in the Hamashiach, inclusive of the stranger who would also become Netzarim. Inclusive of the stranger who would also become Netzarim. There is only one assembly, one kahal, one ecclesia, and Shaul was sent to Ephraim. A rabbi was sent to Ephraim to give them the basora, the same basora that I am giving to you on this Yom. Not giving you a different good news, not telling you that you must receive the brit, the cut, the split of the flesh as a full-grown man to enter into the assembly of Yasharal, whereby receiving deliverance. I'm not telling you not to circumcise your 8-day-old children, your 8-day-old male sons, because this indeed is still Torah. This indeed is still Torah, but what I am declaring to you on this Yom, that as a full-grown believer, you do not have to receive the split, the cut, the breath of the foreskin of your flesh to receive deliverance, to be engrafted into the house of Yasharal. Indeed, what you need to do, what you need to accomplish is to be immersed in the true name of Yahushua, not the pagan baptismal, but the true mikvah tabalah, which is a dipping, a up and down dipping motion, not a pagan ritual of going backwards and being engrafted or initiated into Mithraism, but the true mikvah tabalah, be immersed in his true name and die and be buried and be resurrected with the Hamashiach to the newness of life, whereby having your menstrual cycle washed away, whereby having your leprosy washed away, whereby having your running sores washed away, whereby having been cleansed from touching the dead things of Babylon, and whereby now no longer being outside of the camp because of your uncleanness, because of your filth, because of your sin, but now being invited back into the camp of Yasharal, whereby receiving the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh from on high, whereby being born from above, whereby it is written, verily, verily, truly, truly, I say unto you, that unless one is born from above, that he will by no means enter into the reign of Shamayim. Indeed, by the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh, he then comes in and gives you the breath, the cut, the circumcision of the heart, whereby now you have the circumcision, the sign of the Brit Kadashah, whereby now you can enter into the assembly of Yasharal, because you indeed have the Brit, the cut, the circumcision of the heart, whereby the 10 dabarim, the words of the covenant, by the finger of the Most High, the same finger who etched the 10 dabarim into sapphire stones, that same finger of the Most High, Alua, then takes his finger and etches his righteous Torah upon your heart, whereby giving you a love for Torah and a willingness to obey it. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shaul went to the diaspora, no different than the rest of the taught ones. They went to the diaspora, to the exiles of Yahuwah. They went to Ephraim. Indeed, they also went to the diaspora of Yahudah. They also went to the diaspora of Yahuwah. And for you who are declaring that Alua so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever should believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. But have everlasting life. What I need you to understand is, the world, when he is referring to the world, he is talking about the diaspora that is living amongst the nations, that is living amongst the Gentiles, that is living in the world. Indeed, it is written in 2 Esdras, the 6th chapter, 2 Esdras, the 6th chapter, the 53rd verse through the 59th verse. Upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and creeping things, and after these Adam also, whom thou madest master of all thy creatures, of him come we all. And the people also listen, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this have I spoken before thee, Yahuwah, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Do you hear me? All of this I have spoken before thee, Yahuwah, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Our sakes, Yasharal, the one assembly of Yahuwah. As for the other people, which also came of Adam, thou hast said, they are nothing but be like unto spittle. and has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And now, Yahuwah, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be masters over us and to devour us. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given unto their hands. Hear me, if the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? How long shall this endure? So now you should have an understanding that when he said, for YAHUAH so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever should believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And now you will understand that this is not contradictory of Matthew the 15th chapter, the 24th verse, when Yahusha declared that he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal, that he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal, because the world was made for our sakes, for the firstborn son of YAHUAH, whom the inheritance is given to, the inheritance of the Father. The YAHUAH'S are YAHUAH'S, and he has given it to his firstborn son, Yasharal. Hence, his Talmudim declares in the first chapter of Acts, Master, will you at this time restore the reign to Yasharal? You see, they understood. They knew that they were firstborn sons, and the inheritance of the YAHUAH'S belonged to them. It belonged to us. It belongs to us. Indeed, when we are resurrected into our renewed bright nature in the exact image of our Father YAHUAH, the reign of the YAHUAH'S will be restored to us. Yasharal, meaning Prince of YAHUAH, we will reign with our Father, and the reign will once again be restored to us, where we will reign and rule and govern the YAHUAH'S. He did not go to a Gentile, as your wicked, perverse, tricked mind would think. He went to the diaspora. He went to the house of Jacob. He went to Ephraim, who had been dispersed since the year 722 BCE. And some of you who are listening to this video are indeed Ephraim, who has been dispersed for over 2,700 years, and you do not understand and you do not know who you are. Indeed, you have mixed and mingled with all nations, and you now come in many different shades and colors and many different hair textures, and you do not know who you are. You do not understand that the blood of Abraham and Yishak and Jacob courses through your very veins. But I pray in the name of Yahusha, in the name of YAHUAH, that as his voice protrudes from his dirt vessel on this yom, that your proverbial eyes are ripped open, that your proverbial ears are ripped open, that the proverbial shackles from your mind are loose, and that the soil of your proverbial wicked heart is tilled, so that you can hear, so that you can see, and that you can hear the word of Yah, so that you can hear the truth, the engrafted word of YAHUAH. The engrafted word of YAHUAH. You are not a Christian. You're not a Buddhist. You're not a Muslim. You are not a Hindu. You are not a Gnostic or an agnostic or a witch or a warlock or a Satanist. You do not practice rabbinical Judaism. You are Nasarim. You are Ephraim. You are a Yahudim. You are the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. Come out of her on this yom, my people. It's not coming for a church. It's coming for his firstborn son. He is coming for the one assembly, the Chahal, the ecclesia of YAHUAH. And the good news is, Ephraim, you were once divorced. You were once put away. But there is a new husband now who is resurrected, a new man, and you can be rejoined to him in a renewed covenant, a bref kadashah. And this is also applicable to you, stranger. You can also join the house of Yasharal through HaNetzah. Through HaNetzah. You can also join and receive the brith, the cut, the split, the circumcision of the heart, whereby you can enter into our assembly, and whereby deliverance will also be yours, because the covenants, the promise, and the inheritance was given to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone, as it is written in Yahu, the 31st chapter, verse 31 through 37. Yahu, commonly called Jeremiah. It reads, beginning at verse 31, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharal, with Ephraim. Remember, he is called a Yasharal, Ephraim, and with the house of Yahudah, the southern reign. The southern reign, the two tribes, with the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, along with some of the Levites. Along with some of the Levites. When I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharal, with the house of Ephraim, and with the house of Yahudah, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mizraim. My covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Yasharal, with the house of Ephraim. After these days, declares Yahuwah, I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts with the very finger of Yahuwah, via the fire of the Ruach HaKodesh. This is what happens when you are born from above. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Yasharal. After those days, declare Yahuwah, I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Alua, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness and remember their sin no more. Thus said Yahuwah, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws and the statutes of the moon and the Chokabim are commonly called stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea and its waves roar. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. If these statutes, these laws vanish from before me, declares Yahuwah, hear me, then the seed of Yasharal shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus said Yahuwah, if the Shamayim above could be measured, and the foundation of the earth or the Aret searched out beneath, I would also cast off all the seed of Yasharal for all they have done, declares Yahuwah. You haven't replaced the house of Jacob. You haven't replaced the house of Yasharal. Come out of these decrepit, pagan, satanic, demonic lies and become Netzarim. Come out of her, Ephraim. Come out of her, Yahudah. Come out of her, stranger, and become Netzarim. Be joined to HaNetzah, the branch, and become branches. Be engrafted into the house of Jacob, because as the word of Yahuwah declares, there are no covenants made with any other people. There is one covenant that is made with the house of Yasharal. He is only married to one people. Covenant be meaning marriage. He is only married to one people. To one people. He is not married to a church, to a Greek goddess of sorcery and wine. Come out of her, Ephraim. Come out of her, Yahudah. Come out of her, stranger. Come out of her, stranger. You're still food, aren't you? You're still food, so your wicked heart is still going back to Acts. It's still going back to Antioch, where it said they were first called Christians. So you're still believing lying scribes. So you still do not understand that the word of Yah is infallible. But pagan translators or not, you're still believing that we were first called Christians at Antioch. Even if we were first called Christians at Antioch, it was not a term of endearment. It was an insult. Research the etymology of the word Christian. What you will find is the word Cretan, which means retard, which means someone with a deformity, which means a poor fellow, which means poor fellow. It is an insult. It is an insult, not a term of endurement. Nevertheless, we were not first called Christos. This was introduced under the governorship or reign of Constantine I. We were not first called Christianos. Up until the year 190 AD, we were called Nazarim, and this is in the script, until pagan translators got their hands on it. And then in the year 190 AD, the word was changed to Messianic. And then in the year 310 AD, under pagan ruler Constantine, the word was changed to Christianos. The word was changed to Christians. We are not Christians. We are not Sarim. We are not Sarim. Christian has introduced a two-house theology where you somehow think that your wicked non-Torah following behind has replaced the house of Jacob. You are sadly mistaken, and a season is coming, and a time is coming, and that time is very near when a clear distinction is going to be made between those who are of the house of Jacob and those who are not, between those who are YAHUAH'S and those who are not. He is getting ready to break out the shalak, the halak. He is getting ready to break out the stones, the smooth stones, the 5 smooth stones. Stones in our ancient culture, smooth stones were used as a method of dealing, as a method of separating, as a means of separating property. The elders would sit at the gate and they would conduct business with halak, with smooth stones, to separate their property from each other. Thus, when Dawood faced the giant Goliath, he picked up 5 smooth stones, because on that day, Yahuwah made a clear distinction between who are his seed, and who are the seed of the wicked one. Yahuwah is getting ready to use smooth stones again. And in this season, a clear distinction is going to be made. A separation is going to be made with smooth stones. And he is going to make a declaration between who are his and who are seed of the wicked one. That time is coming. We are not Christians. We are not Sarim. We are not Sarim. In fact, your 4th century church father Epiphanius wrote in the 4th century, hear the words that he wrote: "We shall now especially consider heretics who call themselves Nazarim. They are mainly Yahudim and nothing else. They make use of not only of the Brit Kadashah, it says New Testament here, but that's fake, but they also use in a way the Tanakh, it says Old Testament here, but that's also fake, of the Yahudim. For they do not forbid the books of the Torah. It says law here, but that's also fake. The Nabiim, it says prophets here, but that's also fake. And the writings, the Ketubim. So they are approved of by the Yahudim, from whom the Nazarim do not differ in anything. And they profess all the dogmas pertaining to the prescriptions of the Torah and to the customs of the Yahudim, except they believe in Mashiach. They preach that there is but one Alua, and his son Yahushua HaMashiach. But they are very learned in the Hebrew language, for they, like the Yahudim, read the whole Torah, then the Nabiim. They differ from the Yahudim because they believe in HaMashiach. And from the Christians, do you hear me? and from the Christians, and that they are to this day bound to the Yahudim rites, such as circumcising their young, the Shabbat, and other ceremonies. They have the good news according to Matthew in its entirety in Hebrew. For it is clear that they still preserve this in the Hebrew alphabet as it was originally written. As it was originally written. So for those of you who think that the Brit Chadashah, the New Testament, was originally written in Greek, it was not. It was written in Hebrew. It was translated into Greek to reach the diaspora that were living amongst the Greek-speaking nations, such as the Galut Yah, the exiles of Yahuwah. The exiles of Yahuwah. Now, as we can see from the 4th century church father here, a clear distinction is made between the Christians and the Nazarene. The Christians and the Nazarene. You see, contrary to popular belief, it was the Nazarene who were persecuted by the Romans, who were thrown into the Roman Colosseums, who were executed and beheaded. It was not Christians. It was not Christians. Constantine brought shalom when he brought this fake pagan religion of Christianity and merged all of the pagan religions of his reign under the umbrella of this one universal religion, Catholicism, Christianity. He even merged and he even fooled some of the elect because there's sprinklings of truth in Christianity. There's sprinklings of truth. Oh yes, it's strong, it's strange fire. There's sprinklings of truth in it, but there's a whole lot of paganism. A whole lot of paganism that negates any truth that's in it. That's in it. It was Nazarene that were being persecuted, not Christians. It was the house of Jacob and those who would attach themselves to us who were being persecuted, not Christians. And the same remains today. The same remains true today. Because if you are Nazarene, if you aspire to obey the righteous Torah, and if you have the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach, then this is going to put you in direct opposition with all men. Indeed, Yahushua declared that all men, all nations are going to hate us. All nations are going to hate us. This is the good news that has been presented to you on this Yom. That through HaMashiach, a new husband has resurrected. And Ephraim, you can now come home. Ephraim, you can now come home. You were once dispersed, you were once divorced, put away since the year 722 BCE. But now, Ephraim, you can come home. Now, prodigal son, you can come home. Now, lost sheep, you can come home. You can come home. He came for you. He came for you, Ephraim. He declares in Matthew, the 15th chapter, the 24th verse, I only come for the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. He came for you, Ephraim. The world was made for our sakes. The world was made for our sakes. To you, stranger, the Besorah is presented to you on this day. The Besorah is presented to you as well. You can engraft into us. You can become Netzarim. You can become branches through HaMashiach, through the new husband, and enter into covenant, into marriage, into covenant with the one true Alua of Shamayim and Aretz, and enter into covenant. There's only one marriage, and covenant, as we read, has only been given to one people. The promises, the inheritance, and the covenant is only given to one assembly, the house of Yasharal, the whole house of Yasharal. So the word for you on this Yom is from the time of the Nabiim to Yahuchanan the Immerser, to Yahusha himself. The same message resonates on this day. The same message resonates. And that message is Teshubah. Teshubah, which means to repent, which means to turn from sin. The same message has been proclaimed for thousands of years. Yahusha began his ministry with this very same message, Teshubah, repent, for the reign of Yahuwah is near. Yahuchanan the Immerser began his ministry with this same message, Teshubah, repent, the reign of Yahuwah is near. Repent from what? Repent from sin, repent from transgression of Torah as defined in Yahuchanan Alaf, 1 John, the 3rd chapter, the 4th verse. Sin is transgression of Torah. Teshubah, Teshubah, repent. The reign of Yahuwah is near. Be immersed in the true name of Yahusha, Anagoda Mikba Tabala, whereby having your uncleanness and your filth washed away, whereby coming through the parted sea of reed, coming through the Red Sea, whereby being delivered from the house of bondage, whereby being delivered from the house of sin, whereby being delivered from Mitzrayim, and being delivered into Canaan, to the land flowing with milk and honey, the land that was given only to the house of Jacob. The land, the inheritance that was given only to the house of Jacob. Be immersed in the true name of Yahusha. Die to your sins, whereby having the penalty of the transgression of Torah paid in you, which is death, paid in you, because when you die symbolically, you die with Hamashiach. Thus you die with him. The penalty of death is then paid in you through him. Receive the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh, whereby receiving power, whereby having the Torah of the Most High written upon your heart, whereby giving you a love for Torah and a willingness to obey it, and then walk in Torah, walk in the righteous Torah, walk in the light of Yahuwah, which is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. It lights our path. It illuminates darkness. It illuminates sin. It shows us the sin in our lives. It shows us sin and teaches us to avoid it, and teaches us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, thus teaching us the very nature and character of the Most High Yah, because he is light and there is no darkness in him. If anyone claims to be him, in him, and yet walks in darkness, walks in lawlessness, walks outside of Torah, he lies and the truth is not in him. In order to walk with him and to have fellowship with him, you have to walk in his righteous Torah, which is indeed his very character and nature, which is indeed which is indeed he himself, in which teaches us to be like him, in which teaches us to be set apart. As he is set apart, walk in his righteous Torah. If you are receiving this message on this Yom, if it has resonated in your heart, if it has resonated in your nefesh, you indeed are his sheep, because his sheep hear him. They hear his voice, and another voice they will not follow. They will not follow. If you are hearing this message, if you are receiving the true Besorah on this Yom, you are more than likely Ephraim. You are more than likely Ephraim, whose ancestors have been dispersed for over 2,700 years. And you don't know who you are. And you don't know who you are. Even if you are not Ephraim, you may even be a Yahudim. You may even be a descendant of the tribe of Yehuda, the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Benjamin, or you may be a descendant of Levi, or Louis. Indeed, you may even be a stranger who is not a native born. But if you are hearing his voice on this Yom, then you are indeed his sheep. You are indeed his sheep, irrespective of whether or not you are native born or stranger. If you are hearing and receiving the true Besorah, not the fake Godspell or Goodspell or Godspell, on this Yom, you are indeed his sheep. You are indeed his sheep. Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face towards you and give you shalom. And give you shalom. In closing, do not harden your heart. Do not harden your heart when you hear the word of Yah. Do not harden your heart as some did in the wilderness and were destroyed. Do not harden your heart. We are at a very important point. We are at a Moed season. We're at a Moed season. We're at an appointed time where a distinction is getting ready to be made. We're getting ready to go back into the wilderness. We're getting ready to embark on a second Exodus. Plagues are getting ready to be unleashed. Judgment is getting ready to be unleashed. Yahuwah is getting ready to deliver his people. If you're hearing his voice today, harden not your heart. Teshuba Ephraim, Teshuba Yahudah, Teshuba stranger, and come home. Come home to Yaakov. Come home to the house of Yasharal. Come home to your father. Come home to your father. And once again be privy to the promises, the covenants, and inheritance. Be once again privy to deliverance. As it is written in Matif Yahu, that he came to deliver his people from their sins. His people from their sins. I pray that this has been an encouragement. I pray that it's been edifying. I pray that your eyes have been opened, your ears and your mind and your heart. Shalom, shalom, shalom.